News. I'm Christy Paul sitting in for Mike Alano. We're so glad to have your company. Thanks for being with us. Big developments in the case of 5-year-old Nevaeh Buchanan today, and it is the worst news possible for her family and all of us that were holding out hope. New today, authorities in Monroe County, Michigan say they have a reasonable suspicion that a child's body buried on the banks of a river is indeed that of little Nevaeh. A father and son found it while fishing 7 miles from Nevaeh's home, and some type of cement was found on top of this body. Now, it appears to be buried in a shallow grave. The FBI says it was a little more sophisticated than just dumping a body right now. There have been no arrests in the case, though.
In my opinion, it is a very sick or disturbed person we're looking for. A person that is able to abduct and murder an innocent 5-year-old child.
3 men, each with sexual assault backgrounds, have been questioned. One of them is a friend of Nevaeh's mother. Here to talk about this is attorney Lisa Bloom, CNN legal analyst and anchor for In Session, Michelle Sagona, correspondent for America's Most Wanted, and joining me by phone, HLN law enforcement analyst Mike Brooks. Thank you all so much for joining us. Michelle, we're waiting to get some sound from Nancy Grace as she interviewed the man who found this body, and he was brought to tears during one interview. What can you tell us about how this body was discovered?
Well, what we know from investigators is that this was a father and son who were fishing about 35 miles south of Detroit in the woods, back in an area, when they came across what appeared to possibly be a body wrapped in some sort of cement, covered in some sort of cement of such. And so at that point, what we've learned is that they did in fact contact investigators, and investigators really weren't moving yesterday on a lot of leads and going out searching, but if they did say that if they got something that they would go out and search any area, and that's exactly what they did. They followed through on their word. They went out to this location and they dug up what they now know and to believe to be Nevaeh's body.
Yeah, you can't imagine what this person was going through when they smelled something rancid, I think he said, and realized that he was sitting on some sort of human being or some sort of human decomposition. Mike, if the body was encased in concrete and police say that the body had been there for quite some time, does that compromise what investigators can determine from this body?
Well, they're saying there was no visible trauma to the body, but you can't rule out asphyxiation. But right now, they don't know a cause, and that's going to be the key thing, Christy, is to find out what the cause of death was. But a crime scene like this, even though it's a kind of crude, shallow grave, and with a layer of concrete over the body, you can still gain a lot of evidence out of that. And it sounds like they have gotten other items besides just the body there at the scene that they sent to the Michigan State Crime Lab.
Okay, Lisa, you know, one of the things that is so baffling to people in this case is the mom in particular. She's called one of the sex offenders, George Kennedy, who's been questioned by police, called him a father figure to Nevaeh. Can she face charges for allowing her daughter so close to a sex offender, a known convicted sex offender?
The question is, what did she know about him and when did she know it? Did she know at the time that she was having a friendship or a relationship with him that he was a sex offender, or was she in the dark about that? I mean, if it's the latter, she's a victim. I understand she broke down and sobbed when she got this news yesterday, and probably law enforcement would not come after her if she genuinely did not know. If she did know that he was a sex offender and she negligently allowed him to have contact with her child, yes, she could be facing charges. But if he is not the perpetrator, if that's just a sad coincidence, I wouldn't expect a prosecutor with a heart to go after her, given this discovery, if it is indeed Nevaeh.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more about George Kennedy here. Michelle, he's in custody on a parole violation. Is this an avenue to hold him until they might have more evidence, say this autopsy comes back, to make sure that he's not a flight risk or something, or is he cleared in Nevaeh's disappearance?
Well, at this point, they're still definitely going to hold him, and from the conversation I had with the sheriff yesterday, what he told me is that George Kennedy will probably be going back to prison within the next couple of days because he was in violation of his parole. Now, according to his parole stipulations, he was, number one, not allowed to have any contact with any children. Right. Number two, not allowed to be in possession of toys. Number three, not allowed to have any kind of relationship with any other convicted sex offenders or people who were convicted of crimes, which he did with Roy Smith, who was also behind bars at this point for a parole violation. So, you know, he had violated a lot of things within this, and from my understanding is that the mom did in fact know that he was a convicted sex offender and that he was not supposed to be around children, and that she did her best about 85% of the time to protect Nevaeh from being around George.
Okay, Anna in Florida is on the line with us right now, and she has a question. Anna, go right ahead.
Hi, thanks so much for taking my call. I am so tired of this. This has got to stop. I was a single mother. I raised my 2 children by myself. You know, there's got to be some law put in place, and I'm getting sick and tired of the people that do this. You know, the victims have no rights at all. So, you know, let's get some kind of law in place for these children. Thank you.
Okay, Anna in Florida, I think that you echo what a lot of people are thinking right now. Thank you so much for your call. We appreciate hearing from you. And stay with us. We have more in just a moment on the Nevaeh Buchanan case.